You heard Jim? Because he don't like that. He said, "What you talking about?"
He cut the lights on. You're not supposed to. You heard Jim? Huh? He cut the lights on.
We've been seeing a lot of 50 Cent handing towards Jim Jones having some issues when it comes to the landlord of this property.
The clash between 50 Cent and Jim Jones just hit a whole different level, and it got messy fast. What started as a few shots turned into a full-blown moment when Jones came at 50, and instead of a basic response, 50 flipped the entire situation on its head. He didn't just talk back, he exposed everything. From unpaid rent drama to raw footage that had people replaying it over and over. Things really escalated when Jones pulled up to his own Bronx studio, expecting business as usual. But something felt off immediately. February 19th, 2026, that's when it all went down, and from the first second, nothing looked right. Lights, gone. Power, cut door. Locked tight. No heads up, no message, no access at all. Just silence, hitting different. That's when Jones made a move that turned everything into a viral moment. He didn't wait, didn't call anyone. He went straight to kicking the door in, and within hours, the footage was already everywhere. The video was clear. No confusion at all. Tight hallway, security camera angle, and voices in the background talking about the power being cut. Then Jones steps into frame, walks straight up to the door, and starts kicking with force. The first hits didn't break it, but he kept going like he had something to prove. Then it switched, and boom! One clean hit, and the door came off the hinges like it couldn't handle it anymore. He stepped through like nothing happened, with two people right behind him, and the whole moment barely lasted a minute. But online, it lasted way longer. By the time people checked their phones, it was already viral again and again. But 50 didn't stop at just posting the footage. He went deeper. He dropped documents, real paperwork, showing exactly what led to that moment. A lease termination notice addressed to Joseph Jones and IFC Management, LL.
He posted a video, and I want you guys to take notice of the...
See, not just one warning, but two. Both expired, both ignored, and no room left to argue. The first notice, a 15-day deadline, starting January 5th, ending January 22nd. No response at all. Then came a second one, a 5-day termination notice issued February 10th, expiring February 17th. And here's the part that hit the hardest. Jones showed up on February 19th, 2 days after everything was already done, to a locked building with no power, waiting for him. That building, the IFC factory, was supposed to be something big. He signed the lease back in December 2025, talking about turning it into a full creative space. Plans for a sound stage, a barbershop, even a bodega. A full vision built around the Let's Rap About It podcast with Moolah Face and Dave East. But just 2 months later, everything flipped. Instead of opening doors to something new, he's on camera forcing his way inside a dark building, and the whole internet is watching it play out in real time. Then came 50's caption, and it hit different. Calm, almost playful, but sharp at the same time. He made it clear without raising his voice, turning the whole situation into something bigger than just a clip. It wasn't about reacting, it was about controlling the moment, and that's what made this whole thing land so heavy. Because it didn't just show a lockout, it changed how people saw Jones completely. He had been posting updates, showing progress, building hype, making it all look like a power move in progress. But now, same building, no lights, and he's on camera, kicking his way in like everything slipped out of his hands. And when the landlord stepped back and 50 stepped in, it wasn't just a response. It was a full breakdown of the image Jones had been building this whole time. Every post about building something major suddenly flipped into something people couldn't take seriously anymore. The same space Jones was calling his own turned into the exact place he couldn't even get inside.
Now, 50 also posts the company that says they did put a notice that Jim Jones was evicted. And the eviction notice actually says this. It's from IFC Management LLC to Joseph Jones.
But here's the part most people missed. That lockout wasn't where this started. It was the final move in a much longer play. To really understand how it got there, you have to go back to December 2025, when everything first started heating up on a podcast. The Let's Rap About It crew were sitting inside that same IFC studio, talking freely and throwing opinions around like it was just another regular episode. They went straight at 50's Netflix docuseries, calling it a mockumentary, questioning the quality, even laughing at the tone. On the surface, it looked like normal podcast talk. Nothing too serious, just conversation flowing. But this wasn't random content at all. They were speaking on something 50 created himself, and that changed everything. Instead of jumping into a back and forth, 50 stayed quiet and moved differently. No loud reactions, no emotional responses, just a calculated approach that caught everyone off guard. He went digging behind the scenes, and what he came back with shifted the entire situation. He dropped audio from a phone call with the landlord, someone he referred to as Sam, and in that recording, the tone was clear. Frustration, pressure, and ongoing issues tied to unpaid rent connected to the podcast lease. Then 50 took it public and labeled the whole crew as squatters, putting everything out in the open. Suddenly, this wasn't just podcast talk anymore. It was about money.
Jim has kicked the door off the hinges. Jim, I'm with you. What are you saying? You ain't skipped no leg day. This door was just unpenetrable, this first one.
Responsibility and a situation that looked way bigger than people expected. The numbers he mentioned weren't small either. Claims of debt ranged anywhere from $80,000 to $180,000, with some pushing it close to $250,000 total. Whether people believed it or not, those figures stuck, and they changed how the whole situation was viewed. Then came another layer to it. 50 hinted he was looking at buying the building and possibly taking a major stake in the podcast itself. That alone shifted the power dynamic completely. The crew tried to brush it off, saying everything was handled and the numbers weren't accurate, but the pressure didn't stop, because right after that, 50 posted again, saying Jim Jones wired $200,000 to cover the situation. That update hit fast and made everything look even more real. It turned what some thought was just online talk into something that felt confirmed, but 50 still wasn't done. He dropped another clip, and this one hit different. The studio suddenly lost power mid-recording, leaving the crew sitting in complete darkness. Phones came out, flashlights on, just to keep the episode going. That moment couldn't be explained away easily. You can debate numbers, argue details, but you can't ignore a full blackout caught on camera. It made the entire setup look unstable, like things weren't fully under control behind the scenes. Then everything went quiet, and that silence said more than anything else. No new episodes.
The tenant was served with a 15-day notice of default, dated January 5th, 2026, which expired on January 22nd, 2026. Okay? A 5-day notice of termination, dated February 10th, which also expired on February 17th. The tenancy at the premise has been terminated.
No updates, nothing for weeks. By week 2, people started noticing. By week 3, it was clear something had changed. For a podcast built on consistency, that kind of pause hit hard. The same voices that had so much to say suddenly disappeared, and that shift raised even more questions. And without stepping in directly, the pressure kept building until everything reached that final point. February 17th came and went, the deadline passed, and just 2 days later, everything was cut off completely. That's how it all led to that moment. Jim Jones in a dark hallway, forcing his way back inside, but the bigger question still stands: how did 50 get this level of control in the first place? That answer doesn't start here. It goes all the way back to 2007, where this kind of strategy first began taking shape. Back in 2007, the tension between 50 Cent and Cameron was already heating up, and it wasn't small talk either. It kicked off when 50 went on Angie Martinez's Hot 97 show and called Coke Records a graveyard for artists past their prime. That comment hit hard, and Cameron didn't let it slide at all. Responses came quick, tracks were dropping, and the situation turned intense fast. Right in the middle of all that chaos, 50 didn't just react. He made 2 quiet but powerful moves that didn't look loud at first, but ended up shifting everything. And both of those moves involved Jim Jones and Jules Santana. The first move, 50 brought Jim Jones onto BET's Rap City while co-hosting. And during that appearance, Jones openly showed respect to G-Unit, calling it one of the few movements he respected. That moment stood out because it happened during a time when tensions with Cameron were already high. Then came the second move, and this one hit even harder.
Jimmy, what is this? Jim! Oh no. Yo, the memes about Jim missing leg day.
50 brought both Jim Jones and Jules Santana on stage during a G-Unit show in New York. They performed together in front of a packed crowd, and inside Dipset, that moment didn't sit right at all. It wasn't just a performance, it looked like lines were being crossed. Years later, Cameron even spoke on it, saying the group was already dealing with internal issues at the time. That moment didn't create the cracks, but it made everything break apart faster. He even called it a checkmate move, admitting it was smart even while taking the loss. And 50 didn't hide it either. He confirmed it was all strategy, a classic divide and conquer approach. That's what makes the connection so clear now. Back then, the moves were about appearances and alliances, but in 2026, the moves look different. Built around business pressure and leverage, same mindset, just different tools being used. And here's what really stands out. Jim Jones has been right in the middle of both situations. He was there on Rap City, he was on that stage with G-Unit, and now he's right back in the middle of another situation involving 50. That pattern doesn't go unnoticed, because when pressure gets applied now, it doesn't come out of nowhere. There's history behind it. It makes every move feel more calculated, like it's all part of something bigger that's been building for years. And that's why it hits different, because it's not just about what's happening now, it's about everything that already happened before. 50 knows exactly how to play these moments, and he stays steps ahead every time. Even when things look rough on the surface, there's usually something else being set up behind the scenes. Take 2015, for example. On paper, it looked like a tough moment. He was dealing with a $17 million arbitration judgment tied to Sleek Audio, plus another $5 million judgment connected to a private dispute. On top of that, he filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and a lot of people quickly started calling it the end. But that wasn't the full picture at all. Chapter 11 wasn't the end, it was a reset. He structured a payment plan worth around $23 million, spread out over 5 years, and kept moving forward without stopping. At the same time, he was still active online, posting photos surrounded by stacks of cash. People thought it was him sending a message, but he later explained the situation clearly during an interview.
So 50 kind of hit them with a jab. You notice their tone changed when 50 said, y'all owe $250,000 in rent. They try to play it,
showing there was more control than people realized. And once that situation was behind him, he didn't slow down even for a second. By 2026, he secured a $124 million deal to build a full-scale film and entertainment complex in Shreveport, Louisiana. That's not just talk, that's a serious move backed by real investment. And that says everything about how he operates. Because while everything online is focused on moments like the Jim Jones situation, behind the scenes, the bigger picture looks completely different. He's not stuck in one situation. He's building, expanding, and making long-term moves that go way beyond what people see on the surface. The situation with Jim Jones isn't even 50 Cent's main focus, and that's what makes everything feel so unbalanced. For Jones, this studio situation looks like everything. Something he's trying to hold on to while things get shaky. But for 50, this is just something he handles on the side while building much bigger moves. That gap changes how everything plays out. On one side, you've got someone trying to maintain a single space. And on the other, someone building entire studio operations as a business. Same industry, completely different level. Jones decided to speak publicly. So when 50 responded, it wasn't just surface level. Back and forth, he went deeper, straight into the structure behind everything.
50 came back and said, yo, I got them to pay that money to the man. The man even offered me part of their podcast.
February 20th, 2026, just one day after the door footage went viral, 50 revealed his next move. He posted a picture standing next to Sam, the building owner. Both of them calm, confident, like everything was already settled behind the scenes. And that image alone sent a strong message before anyone even read the caption. Then the caption hit, and it made things even louder. 50 made it sound like he was already involved at a serious level, like decisions were already being made. No official paperwork shown, nothing filed publicly, but he didn't present it like speculation. He spoke like it was already locked in. And just like that, everything shifted. That viral clip of Jim Jones forcing his way into the studio stopped being just a moment people laughed at. It turned into something bigger. Now it looked like property damage connected to someone claiming control over the building. Jones went from being seen as someone locked out to someone now being told to fix what was damaged or deal with bigger consequences. That's a full shift in power, and it happened fast. 50 wasn't just reacting online anymore. He positioned himself as someone with influence over the situation itself. By his own words, he placed himself at the table where decisions get made, not just watching from the outside, and people watching started to understand it differently, because this wasn't really about the building anymore. It was about control. The studio turned into a pressure point. Jones couldn't easily step away without taking a public loss. And once 50 made that claim, everything flipped instantly. Before that moment, this looked like a private issue between a landlord and a tenant. But the second 50 made it sound like ownership was involved. Everything became public. Now the pressure was on Jones to prove otherwise.
So 50 Cent claims Jim Jones sent in $200,000, which I'm impressed. I didn't know Jim Jones had $200K. After accusing the podcast crew of being squatters and owing $250,000 in back rent.
And that's not something you can settle with posts and captions. But that's exactly where things went. Instead of showing legal documents, Jones leaned into the attention. He posted videos training, working on a dummy, referencing The Last Dragon, and turning the moment into content. He played into the spotlight instead of stepping away from it. At the same time, Mendices stepped in with a more grounded response. He went on Angela Yee's Way Up show and laid out their side clearly. He explained the lease was structured over 5 years. He said financial responsibility was tied to the LLC, not individuals. And he argued the situation didn't follow proper legal steps. No court order, no official enforcement, no formal process. According to him, the locks were changed without proper clearance. Police were called, and he claimed the landlord was even removed while they regained access to the space. He called the entire situation false and backed it up by filming a walkthrough inside the studio, showing equipment, showing activity, trying to prove everything was still running. That was the most direct response they gave the entire time, but even that had limits, because showing you can walk inside a building doesn't prove control over it. It doesn't answer ownership claims, and it doesn't slow down the narrative that was already spreading online. So even with access, even with video proof, the bigger story kept leaning in 50's direction. That's where things stayed tense. That walkthrough didn't fix the main issue at all. It didn't erase the image of the building. Owner standing next to your rival, looking confident like everything was handled. It didn't remove the footage of doors being forced open in the middle of the night. Mendices may have made strong points, but online, the moment had already moved past that. The internet had already picked a side, and once that happens, it's hard to reverse. The image was already set.
He has the song Turn Off the Lights, and he says, LOL Cam, turn the lights off on them bum in there with flashlight.
The story already shaped, and 50 wasn't done adding to it. While all this was unfolding in real time, he was already building another move. Something more calculated, something that reached back into history and brought up a name that carried weight. March 7th, 2026, he made another step. He jumped on Max B's track from the 2024 project Public Domain, flipped it into something new, and delivered a fresh verse. No features, just him calling out the entire podcast crew directly. Names were mentioned, lines were drawn, and the message was clear. Then just 3 days later, March 10th, he took it even further. He dropped a full AI-generated music video for the track, built by a content creator known for that style. The visual showed animated versions moving through New York, with scenes aimed directly at each person involved. And one moment in that video stood out more than anything else. The moment that stood out the most in that AI video was Jim Jones placed in what looked like an interrogation room, lined up perfectly with lyrics about snitching. That wasn't random at all. That was intentional, and it hit a narrative that's been following Jones for years. The first situation people always bring up goes back to September 2019, during Tekashi 6ix9ine's federal racketeering trial in Manhattan. During that trial, 6ix9ine testified and claimed Jim Jones had ties to the 9 Trey Bloods. Prosecutors even played a wiretap call from November 2018, where Jones and another individual were discussing what should happen after 6ix9ine spoke publicly. Now here's the important part. Jones was never charged or arrested in that case. The wiretap wasn't used against him directly, and no legal action came his way from that situation. But even without charges, that clip stayed online, and 50 has kept it in rotation, bringing it back into the spotlight again and again. Not by explaining it in detail, but by presenting it in a way that makes people start asking questions on their own.
Anymore. Fifth is the only I know that when you cross him, if it takes 1 year, 10 years, 20 years, 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, 2.5 years, he still delivers. He doesn't give a.
Then came another moment in May 2024 when footage surfaced showing Jim Jones involved in an altercation at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. After everything settled, Jones spoke with police and gave his side of what happened. A clip from that situation spread quickly online, with some people labeling him a rat and calling it snitching. Jones pushed back making it clear that if you're the one involved in an incident, explaining your side doesn't automatically mean anything beyond that. No charges came from that situation either, and nothing escalated further from it. Then there's a third situation that's been talked about for years, connected to Max B and a case from 2009. There have been rumors and conversations over time, with different people speaking on it in interviews, including Cameron and Max B himself. But here's the key detail that often gets overlooked. There are no official court records, no filings, and no confirmed evidence directly linking Jim Jones to that case. He was never charged or formally questioned in connection to it. And that's exactly what makes this whole strategy so sharp, because whether these situations hold up legally isn't even the main point here. What matters is that they exist online, they're searchable, and they can be brought back at any moment. 50 doesn't need long explanations. He uses visuals to do the work. He places Max B into the video, puts Jones in that interrogation-style setting, and lets the audience connect the dots themselves without spelling anything out directly. That's where the impact comes from. So when Max B appears in that March 2026 AI video, it's not just a feature, it's a message layered with history.
This is how dirty 50 plays. 50 knows you is broken. So 50 is now enticed the goddamn owner of the property.
Tension and everything people have already seen before. And it hits harder because the background is already out there. Even the caption added another layer. 50 wrote, "I am the algorithm." And that line says everything about how he's moving. This isn't about who has the better verse or who wins a lyrical exchange. This is about attention, timing, and how stories spread online. He's showing that controlling the narrative matters more than anything else. The AI video itself was another major step. This wasn't a traditional music video with cameras, locations, and a full crew. Instead, it was built digitally and pushed out fast across platforms. Within hours, it was everywhere, clean, direct, and impossible to ignore. At the same time, Jim Jones was responding with quick phone shot clips, trying to stay active and present in the moment. But the difference in execution stood out clearly. On one side, fast reactions trying to keep pace. On the other, a full rollout designed to hit from every angle at once. That contrast made everything feel even more one-sided, and it didn't slow down after that. Once the AI video dropped, the conversation shifted again. It wasn't just about rent, locks, or that hallway footage anymore. Now people were debating reputation, history, and what sticks with you when situations get messy. That's where 50 separated himself even more. He wasn't chasing the moment, he was shaping it step by step. First came the rent documents, then the blackout, then the lockout footage, then the ownership claim, and now the AI visuals. Each move added pressure without him needing to raise his voice or react emotionally. Meanwhile, Jim Jones was left responding in real time, and reacting always puts you one step behind. That's what people started noticing the most. It wasn't just what was happening, it was how it was happening. 50 was moving with a plan, with resources, and with patience. Jones looked like someone trying to keep up with a situation that kept changing direction.
My audience doesn't understand the difference between chapter 11 and chapter 7.
Yeah.
When you file chapter 11, you just really reorganize.
You're reorganizing your business.
And once the internet locks into that kind of narrative, it becomes very hard to shift it because online perception moves fast. People aren't waiting for official updates or detailed breakdowns. They're watching clips, reading captions, and forming opinions instantly. And 50 understands that better than most. He knows that controlling content means controlling the conversation. That's why he didn't stop at one move. He kept building on each one. Even the timing felt deliberate. Posts dropping early, clips hitting at peak engagement, captions written to spark immediate reactions. Every detail played a role, and that consistency is what kept the pressure building with every single step. It didn't feel random at all. Everything about it looked calculated from start to finish. And while all of that was unfolding, something else started shifting in the background. More voices entered the conversation. Blog pages, reaction channels, streamers. Everybody jumped in with opinions, breakdowns, and takes. Some people stood behind Jim Jones, saying the situation looked overblown or pushed too far. Others focused on the visuals, pointing out that even if numbers and claims could be debated, what people saw on camera told a different story. And visuals always stick online. Nobody forgets a dark studio in the middle of a podcast recording. Nobody forgets a door getting forced open on camera. Nobody forgets a scene that places you in a certain light tied to your name. Those images stay in people's minds. And 50 made sure there were plenty of them circulating at the same time. Now, to be fair, Jim Jones didn't disappear under the pressure. He stayed active, kept posting, kept showing presence. And that matters because going silent would have made everything look even worse. So instead, he leaned into visibility, training clips, high energy posts, showing he's still moving and not backing down.
50 has said he's gonna beat y'all up. I ain't say it. Says it right here. He posted your landlord. Yo, 50's great.
But here's the issue. That kind of response keeps you seen, but it doesn't change the direction of the story. It doesn't flip the narrative. And by this point, that's exactly what was needed. Because this wasn't just about what's true or not anymore. It became about momentum. And the momentum was clearly leaning one way. Another layer people started noticing was how quiet some key names stayed. Dave East didn't jump deep into the back and forth. Others kept a low profile too. And that silence added weight to everything. Because when names get mentioned and there's no strong response, people start filling in the gaps themselves. And those gaps quickly turn into assumptions and conversations that keep spreading. And once again, that worked in 50's favor because he didn't need everyone to respond. He just needed the conversation to keep moving in his direction. And that's exactly what was happening. As time went on, it stopped feeling like a simple back and forth and started looking more like a full rollout, like every moment was part of a bigger plan. Each clip, each post, each reaction became another piece of the story. And the audience stayed locked in the whole time, refreshing pages, checking updates, waiting to see what happens next. That level of attention is powerful, and 50 knows exactly how to hold it. He's done this before. Maybe not the exact same situation, but the same kind of pressure, the same slow build, the same layered moves backed by strong visuals. It's a formula, and right now, it looked like it was working again. And with everything building up like this, one big question started hanging over the entire situation. So now the big question is clear. What's the end game here? Because at this point, this isn't just about viral moments or clips, people. Replay for entertainment. There's real business tied into all of this. A building, a podcast, partnerships, money, reputation. Everything is on the line. And eventually, something has to shift. Either this gets handled quietly behind the scenes, or it keeps building into something even bigger. Based on how everything has played out so far, it doesn't look like things are slowing down anytime soon. Neither side seems ready to fully step back. But the real difference shows in how each side is moving. Jim Jones is standing in it, responding, staying visible, holding his position in real time. Meanwhile, 50 Cent is moving around it, shaping how everything looks, controlling angles and applying pressure without direct confrontation. That contrast is what makes this situation hit so hard, because it's not just about what's happening, it's about how differently it's being handled. One side is reacting in the moment, the other is thinking long term. And when those two styles collide, it rarely ends quickly, especially when the internet is watching every move. At that point, it stops being private. It turns into public entertainment. People get invested, opinions start forming, and every post becomes part of something bigger. A full storyline that keeps evolving. And right now, that story doesn't feel finished at all, even after everything that's already happened. The footage, the claims, the videos, there's still tension, still questions, still reactions, and still room for another move at any moment. And if there's one thing that's been clear the entire time, 50 always has another move ready. The longer this plays out, the more it starts to look like a waiting game, not a loud ending, but a slow build where pressure keeps stacking. Because right now, everything is sitting in a strange place. Nothing fully resolved. Nothing completely shut down. The studio situation still has questions around it. The ownership angle still hangs in the air, and the online narrative still leans heavily in one direction. That kind of tension doesn't just disappear. It either gets addressed or it grows into something bigger. And here's where it gets even more interesting. If Jim Jones decides to switch strategy, it's going to take more than just staying visible. It would require something solid, something structured, something strong enough to shift the story that's already out there, because energy alone doesn't change perception. It has to hit just as hard as everything that's already been put into the spotlight. On the other side, 50 doesn't need to rush anything at all. That's what makes his position so strong. He can go quiet, let everything breathe, and the narrative still moves in his favor. Then at any moment, he can step back in with another post, another clip, or another move that resets the whole conversation. That's control, and people are starting to recognize that clearly now. Even when he's not posting, it still feels like he's part of the conversation. That's a different level of influence. At the same time, there's always a chance this shifts offline, because situations involving property, money, and contracts don't stay public forever. At some point, real discussions happen behind closed doors. Legal teams step in, agreements get discussed, and things either get settled or get more complicated. And if that happens, the public might not even see the full outcome right away. But until then, the internet keeps running with what it has. Clips, captions, reactions, all of it keeps circulating. And every time it does, it reinforces the same storyline again and again. That repetition matters, because the more people see something, the more it starts to feel like the final version, even if there are still missing pieces. That's why this situation still feels active, even in quiet moments. Nothing has officially ended. No clear outcome has been confirmed. But the way things look right now, one side seems much more comfortable playing the long game. And if this keeps stretching out, that patience could end up being the biggest advantage of all. The gap between what each side has access to, technically, financially, and creatively, showed in every part of this situation. This all started back in December 2025, when Jim Jones took a shot at 50's Netflix project and called it a mockumentary. That was the spark. Fast forward to March 2026, and look how far everything moved. 50 didn't argue back. He exposed details, shared documents, and let the internet run with it. Then it escalated further, linking up with the building owner, sharing the footage, and following it with a fully produced AI video that kept the conversation going. All of that, no shouting, no direct confrontation, just moves stacked on top of each other. That's how this whole situation unfolded. And if you made it this far, you already know. This situation is wild. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to stay updated, and share this video so more people can see what's really going on. Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story is still developing. And if you want more breakdowns like this, check out the next video on your screen and keep watching.